The next philosophical problem we want to look at is a problem in the area of value. Remember, I said all philosophical problems, we can throw them into three buckets. We can throw them, they're questions about knowledge, about reality, or about value. Well, here are a few questions about value, so you get an idea of what kind of questions philosophers think about and talk about with respect to values. I mean, one set of values that we spend a lot of time thinking about, and philosophers have thought about throughout the ages, is the area of ethics, morals. And one question in it, that is, and when we're talking about ethics, we're talking about, what do we judge to be right and wrong? What things are ultimately valuable in themselves? What things are only valuable for doing something else? But one of the questions in that area, when we're thinking about ethics, what we ought to do, what's right or wrong, is the question of justifying a moral standard. So, for example, we say murder is wrong, or torturing babies is wrong, or raping is wrong. Well, when we say that these actions are wrong, we say these actions are right, giving charity is right, what exactly makes an action right or wrong? And in fact, why don't you think about that for 30 seconds when we decide something is right or wrong, morally right or wrong? You can put this recording on hold. Write down a few suggestions. What kinds of things might you think determine whether, that is, make the action right or wrong? Now that you've started up again, having thought about it, and seriously, when I give you questions like that, sit down and write something down. Don't just say it. Write it down so you know what we said. And let me suggest there is a whole spectrum of theories, wide variety of theories of what it is that makes an action right or wrong. First one that comes up that people have thought about is something called the divine command theory, that God commands it. What makes it right? How do I know? The Bible tells me so. God commands it. Notice a relationship between this theory and philosophy of religion. Some people say, well, what makes something right or wrong is how it affects me. Does it put me in the best situation? That is, I have to watch out for my own, I have to watch out for my own back. You watch out for your own back. Theory called egoism. Another one, very persuasive, another answer to the question, what makes an action right or wrong? Well, it's determined by the standards of a given society or culture. Something known as either relativism or cultural relativism. Very prominent view today. It's something that many people think to be true. I think it's a very bad theory. And if you take my ethics course, we'll spend more time on a lot of these. A dominant theory about what makes actions right or wrong is the fact that they maximize pleasure and minimize pain. That is, what makes something right or wrong is it creates the most pleasure and the least amount of pain. It's a theory called utilitarianism. And even the debates that we're having now about that the president has been starting about raising taxes, so talking about the rich doing stuff for the poor. The idea is that by having a tax policy and taxing the rich more, what the president expects you to think is it's going to maximize the pleasure on the part of society in general, and it'll happen at a minimum amount of pain because the rich people, according to the president, can afford to pay more, or he likes to actually call it his fair share. But to move out of politics, I just want to give you an idea what the theory there. And there's another theory that's really contrasted with utilitarianism, which is known as deontology. It comes from it was originated from the work of Immanuel Kant, and that is that what makes something right or wrong is that we have certain duties, and we have a duty to adhere, to follow certain rules or principles. And what makes my action right or wrong is either that they conform to the principle or they do not conform to the principle. Very utilitarianism and deontology are two predominant theories in modern ethics. And then there's another theory that what makes something right or wrong is based on agreements that people have come to within society, that we have. It's not just that we're members of the same culture, that we've actually agree on certain things. We agree to proceed in certain ways, and we are kind of entered into a contract. So what makes it right or wrong is whether it conforms to the contract or whether we're violating the terms of our contract. You might have heard of social contract theory in political philosophy. It's based on this idea as well. And questions that they actually, in addition to asking about what makes actions right or wrong, what are called applied ethical problems are studied by philosophers in our times, contemporary times. Question is, are late-term abortions morally permissible? Some question that's just been raised by the governor of the state of New York. He thinks, up to the moment of birth, they're morally permissible, and the law ought to allow them. But these, as I said, this is just to give you a flavor of the kind of questions that ask, so you get an understanding, a picture of what philosophy is. Now, in another realm of value, sort of a subtopic under ethics, there's something called political philosophy. And if you think about what political philosophy is about, it is about ethics, a moral standard for governments, for societies. And questions under the field or in the field of political philosophy, yes, what do I owe society as a member of my country, as a citizen of my country, as a member of my society? What do I owe the society? It used to be that we had a draft. In some other countries they have military service. You owe them military service. Going back to the tax issue that's come up, you owe it to society, if you can afford, to pay for the less fortunate by providing them with food, medical care, education. And then on the other side of the coin, what does society owe me, the citizen? It should protect me from bodily harm, right? It should stop crimes from being committed against me that are going to harm me personally. And recent topic that's been a bit of fight is, does society owe me birth control, to pay for my birth control? These are some of the examples of issues regarding value that philosophers consider. Very interesting questions. There was a lot of work done during the period that we're going to be studying in our history of philosophy. A lot of the philosophers we're studying had a lot to say in the realms of ethics and political philosophy. In fact, some of them, John Locke, for example, is best commonly known for his position in the position that he held and advocated about political philosophy. We are not going to be touching on these this semester. But I'd encourage you, if you're interested, we do in our department teach a course in ethics, and it'll give you an opportunity to look at these classes. But here we can now kind of wrap it up, and we will for a second. We've looked at a whole gamut, what's a spectrum, a wide variety, for kind of from A to Z of the major problems that are thought about, the major questions that philosophers are seeking answers for.